Hi there, and welcome to our final episode of the Greater Good video course on how to become a social entrepreneur. Today, we're going to be talking about impact, the reason behind it all. Social entrepreneurs are, by definition, trying to create positive impact. But how do we make sure that our initiatives actually achieve this? Success is not a given. So, Madeline, what are some of the pitfalls and ways to avoid crashing and burning?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've taken time, we've looked at our vision and our why and how we want to change the world, and it's going to be awesome, and so on. That's great. It doesn't mean it necessarily lands that way. So, as in life, I don't know if I think most of us have had the experience of having the intention of creating something or, saying something to somebody to, do something, but the impact that it has is not necessarily what we thought it would be. And so there's this kind of disconnect. So obviously, we do not want this to become misaligned in the case of impact, right? So I would start with encouraging everyone who holds any form of social privilege. So that can look like a multitude of things, like I'm white. Let's start with that. So what does that mean in the context of what I'm doing? So I would invite everybody to sort of just notice those things because sometimes that there can be unconscious power systems that we're kind of playing into or being part of, like, especially in the social impact space. Because, as an example, if you're someone in the global north who is seeking to help folks in the global south, um, there's a legacy of colonial practices, there's all kinds of stuff, and there can be this kind of almost presumed superiority of, like, I know best and I'm going to teach you how to do this thing, or I'm going to give you this thing. And there are power dynamics embedded in that that you need to be really mindful of, even though you think you're coming from a place of generosity, this matters to you, it feels good. But just to be really rigorous about that, because that stuff can really go sideways unless you really understand, what do those people need. If their experience is outside of your own, then just be really rigorous in terms of interrogating, making sure that you understand that what they actually need and that what you are delivering actually solves a problem for them without disempowering them. Because that's something that we see in the charity model, where there's this endless, like, I give you take sort of model, where people are not necessarily ever empowered to stand on their own 2 feet and have agency, right? So, oh boy, so that's a thing. There are a lot of also more practical measures that you can take. So there are certifications, there are things that you can do. There are great, if you look at the resource section on my website, you can analyze, like, what's happening in terms of like, your organization's social impact, your from a racial justice perspective, like, how equitable is your organization, who is working for your team, how much are they paid, what do they do. And there are some really, really great tools to help you do that. So in the business world, if you want to look at becoming a B Corp, something like that. So B Corp is an extremely rigorous third-party certification that measures every single social environmental impact of your organization. Um, but I think the main thing is just not taking for granted that your impact will equal your intention, is sort of the main thing. The other thing I think we need to be really mindful of is that we're working within systems that are so deeply entrenched. So, for example, let's say I make a green product, right, and or a social impact service, and I want to deliver that, but I don't question um, modern concepts of scale. So I want to, I got to go out and I got to pitch my green product or impact service on Shark Tank, and I got to promise investors a 10x return, and I got to grow it like a hockey stick, and I got to, da, 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 da. Okay, you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, so accepting those systems and those metrics as your measure of success is, what I would argue, is a bit of a fallacy, because you're buying into a system and a way of looking at things that is inherently kind of extractive and not relational and not in line with the values that created the product or service. So it's looking really hard at things like that, and then just being willing to be mindful of it as you go forward, and ensuring there needs to be alignment, I would say, between what you are doing and how you are doing it. Like I've seen, again, people, leaders creating organizations with incredible green products, social impact services, who don't treat their teams well, or who are using, poor labor standards or whatever. And it's like, hey, 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 like this needs to be aligned. And this is part of the reason why it's so hard to be a social entrepreneur, is because you can't cut those corners. You don't want to cut those corners because that's not the real win at the end of the day. Like we don't want to be doing something at the expense of something else. The point is alignment, and the point is for this to be as kind of good, if you will, as possible, all the way through, from your own integrity to the product that you create to how it's being delivered. And that is what I call radiance in the book. And that relates back to the title, because when you can you're able to kind of align all those things, then that's what makes the good greater and the greater good.
That is one of my favorite aspects of the book is your concept of radiance, which to me is really a redefinition of what success means. So if in the profit-driven business paradigm, growing that organization as to be as big as possible is the marker of achievement. Radiance is something that you use to define success differently. So can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by radiance?
Yeah, for sure. And well, I mean, it's an evolving concept. It's an emergent concept, to use a wonderful term coined by Adrienne Murray Brown, whose work I highly recommend. So it's just a more organic way, is a simple way of looking at it. So it's multifaceted. So when we think about like the famous hockey stick growth chart, it measures essentially one thing, and it just goes perpetually up and to the right. It's monodimensional. It doesn't reflect any social or environmental impact. It doesn't measure the happiness of the people who are involved in creating whatever. It doesn't, there's just very little. Like it's incredibly limited. And I would add to that there's practically nothing in nature that actually grows according to that pattern, which is notable, I think, because if anything, at this time, we can benefit from learning from nature. It's called biomimicry, right? Like, what are natural designs for organizations and growth patterns? Because that, nature is kind of the ultimate regenerative resource in terms of information. Like, left to its own devices, it grows, it does its own thing, it provides its own ecosystems that are self-sustaining. And I think that we really need to be learning from those types of examples. So looking at how do trees grow, how do forests grow, and there are, even right now, there are economists. Kate Rayworth is an amazing economist who's looking at this right now, and making these arguments that, in fact, like, we can replicate those types of growth patterns that trees and forests have in organizations really successfully. So to me, radiance is just, it's a different, it's you think about something that's just going from that one line to something that's coming out in all directions in different ways, that is far more inclusive and far more organic and far more interesting and real in terms of what something's doing. I just personally find it very creative and inspiring and interesting.
I love it too. Thank you so much, Madeleine. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate your insights, your wisdom, and your experience. And to those of you who are reviewing this series, if you've enjoyed this conversation and you want to learn more, I really encourage you to pick up a copy of Madeleine's book, The Greater Good, which offers all of the tools and encouragement that you need to start your own impact-based venture. Thank you so much for this illuminating discussion.
Thank you, Maggie. It's been an absolute pleasure.